Bill Carroll of Zenny62 Sports Media, and I'm going to be going through the next month or so 32 different teams, and of course, players that they drafted, and then players they gained through the undrafted free agent signing period that I like to call the 8th round. And I want to highlight players I think have the best chance to contribute. I don't get into the draft grades, partially because, as has been pointed out many times, you can't grade a draft immediately after it happens. Several of the players that we think are going to be good will not pan out. Some of the players that we aren't excited about are turn out to be really great. But I can talk about teams that I think maximized opportunity or maximized value. The Bengals are obviously a very good football team, just played in the Super Bowl, but they still have some holes to fill. They might be about to part ways with Jesse Bates, or at least have to rethink their relationship with Jesse Bates. So that is probably one of the driving forces behind the Daxton Hill drafting, with pick 31, second to last pick in the first round. Very versatile guy, can play slot corner, and can play free safety, and possibly also play outside at either boundary or field corner. He's not the most physically imposing safety, but he's a really good athlete, has good enough ball skills. We'll see. Obviously, I'd like to have seen a little more production, and he did test extremely well, and he has a good frame. Then they come back with Cam Taylor-Britt, another defensive back. Second round, pick 60. Once again, I felt like it was a little bit of a reach. I felt there might have been a few better players available, even at the same position where they picked. I mean, I think Damari Mathis is going to end up being a better player, but I can't kill the pick. I just feel that they could have either traded back and still gotten him, or targeted another player. They only, had, a slightly smaller than usual number of picks. They did a fair amount with it. Zachary Carter is an interior / exterior pass rusher. A guy can probably play a little 3-tech, definitely can play 4-eye and 5, and maybe even out to 7. I think their best picks were actually their second, or the third to last in their last picks. Cordell Volson, I think, not only does he definitely make the team, but I think he's going to see the field fairly early. He's their fourth pick 136. Very good football player. Guy can play a couple of different positions. And that's the thing I've noticed about almost all the players that they drafted are guys that can play multiple positions. Players that can play maybe defensive end and outside linebacker, guard and tackle, safety and corner, defense, almost all of them. I guess literally all of them. Defensive tackle, defensive end, they're all guys who can play multiple positions. So that's probably the driving force behind some of these selections. Tyson Anderson is another player that, I think some teams look at physical testing. Well, all teams look at physical testing differently. They value physical testing differently. And some obviously value it more or less than others. But Tyson Anderson is an extremely athletic safety. And of course, playing in the MAC, he's really got an opportunity to see him play against a decent level of competition, but it's certainly different than what he's going to be facing going forward. And, Duke Tobin clearly wants to have a lot of sort of movable pieces, and he's yet another one of them, and some people think he can play corner as well, but that's almost entirely speculative. He's been a safety, but a super athletic one, but not always, once again, the most productive and not always the most polished. My favorite pick is probably Jeffrey Gunter, who they got at pick 252. Another guy I think definitely makes the team, and he might not quite all the way reach the level of a guy like Carl Lawson, but I think he might get closer than people might expect for a guy that goes this late. He's another player that played an extra year, so maybe age pushed him down the board a little bit, but I frankly think he's a steal at this point. So close to the end of the draft, 12 picks away from the end, not even 12, 10 picks away from the end. But I really liked the Jeffrey Gunter selection. I don't think they exactly, quote-unquote, killed it in this draft, but I do think that they found, I would say at least, of the players selected, at least 4 of them, I think, contributed fairly early on. I think Hill sees the field early. I think Volson definitely does. I think Gunter definitely does, at least in sort of rotational situations. And I think Zachary Carter probably comes on also in those sort of package and rotational situations. Looking to the, quote-unquote, 8th round, the undrafted free agent signing period, players I think have a really good chance to see the field and contribute. I think Shamari Jones is probably going to be a special teams guy, but I could see him making the team as depth at running back. I really like getting Ben Brown, who can play guard and offensive and center. And I think he not only doesn't make the team, but I think he's at least a swing, sort of guy that backs up a couple different positions right out of the box. Javon Hiley is a player who, once again, had a pro day sort of drag down his draft stock, and once again, an extremely deep wide receiver class pushed him down the board to the point that he's undrafted. But he has a chance to make, if not this team, someone's team. I think he's a good player, just not super athletic. And then they also got Kwame Lassiter, Kansas. They got who's another wide receiver, tight end Justin Rigg from Kentucky, who I don't think makes the team, but it's not. I can't rule it out entirely. Devin Cochran has at least a chance to make the team, another guy who can play tackle and possibly guard. And here's my two favorites, right? Well, Jack Sorensen's a guy that, once again, another wide receiver who I think is, if he makes the team, is for special teams. Another tight end, Jordan Wilson from Florida State, another guy that, if he makes the special teams. Peru State, yes, Peru State's Delonte Hood. And once again, special teams is his ticket if he makes the team. And then Stuart Reese, Florida Gators, guard who, if he can once again show he can lead more than one position, has a chance to make it. And Kendrick Pryor, another wide receiver from the Badgers of Wisconsin. And they also got I mentioned Devin Cochran. But I want to mention the guys that I think have the best chance to only make the team. Oh, and almost got, Taquarius Tisdale. Another guy who can probably play multiple positions on the defensive line. And, I also like Desmond Knoll, the offensive guard from Florida Atlantic. And they also got Clarence Hicks, a linebacker who's, once again, probably a special teams guy from UTSA. Now, to my favorites amongst the undrafteds, and guys I think have a chance to not only make the team, but contribute. I think Carson Wells is going to end up being a situational pass rusher who contributes immediately. And I think he not only makes the team, but I think he contributes, like I said, early, and I think he contributes often. I don't know why he's not talked about more highly as his ability to rush the passer, and he's a pretty good linebacker. He's played, actual linebacker, but he can give you a lot of the pressure that you can get from a guy whose job is to rush the passer, but he can also actually literally play outside linebacker, like real 4-3 outside linebacker. But I think he give you, once again, versatility. He could be a 3-4 and a 4-3 outside linebacker. So if you're going to be multiple, he can play Sam in a 4-3 or a weak outside linebacker a weak outside linebacker in a 3-4, or Sam in a 4-3. Last but not least, Brendan Radley Hiles. Now, he starts his career as a 4-star recruit, goes to Oklahoma, and has a decent little run there, and then finishes up with the Washington Huskies, where he gets to be part of their sort of DBU West Coast edition culture there. Now, he's a small guy. He's about my size, 5'7" and 7'8". Sorry, I'm 5'8". And, came in, 183, I believe, and ran a 4.64. That's obviously why he's an undrafted free agent. His tape is pretty good. He's a slot corner, and it might even play, in that sort of, multiple safety. If you have 3 safeties, you might pretend he's a safety. He's a tough guy, but obviously he's not a real safety. He's not big enough to be a full-time safety. But there's a lot to like about him. So I think that they took advantage of some of the opportunities they had to add to a team that's obviously very good. I don't think they got the maximum out of each one of their selections. I'll be moving on to the next team.